I learned that truth at 63, staring at a cruise brochure while my daughter's hands trembled and my son-in-law couldn't meet my eyes. They said it was a gift. A birthday celebration. 7 days in paradise, just family. But I'd spent 30 years as a Coast Guard investigator. I knew when someone was lying. I knew when a gift wasn't really a gift. What I didn't know was that my own daughter had already decided I was worth more dead than alive. Before we continue, subscribe to Silken Real Life Revenge. Click the notification bell because we have new stories every single day. Leave a like and tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. The envelope was cream-colored and expensive. Too expensive for someone who'd called me 3 weeks earlier asking for gas money. Lula slid it across my coffee table with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Inside were glossy brochures showing turquoise water and white sand beaches. Caribbean Pearl. 7-day cruise. 3 passengers. Happy early birthday, Dad, she said. Her husband, Brandon, leaned forward like he was about to tell me something important. We've been planning this for months. You deserve it. I picked up the brochures carefully. The investigator in me never really retired. This must have cost thousands. Don't worry about that. Lula's laugh sounded like breaking glass. We've been saving specifically for this trip. Brandon nodded too quickly. Insurance business has been good lately. We wanted to show appreciation for everything you've done. But I knew Brandon's insurance agency barely covered their mortgage. I'd seen the overdue notice that fell from Lula's purse at Christmas, the one she'd grabbed with red cheeks and shaking hands. Something was wrong. When does it leave? I asked. Saturday morning. 2 days from now. Lula drummed her fingers on my table. Perfect timing, right? I stood to get water, needing space to think. They followed me into the kitchen like shadows. I have a notary appointment Wednesday, I mentioned casually. Estate planning review. Brandon's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Reschedule it, Lula said too quickly. Estate planning can wait. This cruise deal expires tomorrow. These opportunities don't last, Brandon added. His voice dropped into a tone I'd never heard before. Cold. Calculated. I turned to face them. When exactly did you book this? Lula's eyes darted to Brandon before answering. Last week. Complete surprise. Last week, I repeated slowly. Before confirming, I was available. We knew you'd be available, Dad. Bitterness crept into her voice. You're always available. It's not like you have anything else demanding your time. The words hit harder than she probably intended. Brandon shot her a warning look, but the damage was done. I poured water into 3 glasses, buying time to think. My daughter wanted me on a cruise ship. My son-in-law watched me like I was cargo he needed to inspect. A notary appointment had triggered visible panic. Fine, I said finally. I'll go. After they left, I sat in my study staring at incident reports from old Coast Guard cases. 30 years of investigating maritime accidents had taught me to recognize patterns, to trust when details didn't align properly. I pulled out a small notebook and started writing observations. The expensive envelope. Brandon's 4 glances at his watch. Lula's trembling fingers. Their reaction when I mentioned the notary. Evening light faded while I worked. When I finally started packing, I selected clothes methodically. Casual shirts. Comfortable pants. Nothing flashy. The notebook went into my bag's side pocket. Old habit from decades of fieldwork. I sat on my bed staring at the packed luggage. Then I pulled the notebook back out and wrote one final observation before sleep. They need me on that ship specifically. The question is why. I already knew the answer. I just didn't want to believe it yet. The highway stretched ahead in pre-dawn darkness. I'd left Clearwater at 5, thermos of coffee in the cup holder, trying to quiet the voice in my head that said turn around. Traffic thickened approaching Miami. By the time I reached the port terminal, families swarmed everywhere. Children shrieking with excitement. Elderly couples shuffling forward with matching luggage. I scanned the crowd systematically. Old habits. Dad. Lula waved frantically near the priority boarding sign. But Brandon was turned away, phone pressed against his ear, shoulders tight with tension. I approached slowly, watching. Brandon's free hand gestured sharply, then froze when he noticed me. The call ended abruptly. Work trouble? I asked. Nothing that can't wait. He pocketed the phone with controlled movements. Lula linked her arm through mine, steering me toward check-in. Isn't this exciting? I've never been on a cruise before. Neither have I admitted. Throughout the boarding process, Lula stayed within arm's reach. When an elderly couple noticed my Coast Guard cap and started asking questions, Lula smoothly interrupted. Dad, we need to find our cabins. The ship's enormous. The interference felt deliberate. I filed it away mentally. A crew member escorted us to Deck 9. He stopped at cabin 912. Mr. and Mrs. Harper, your interior accommodation. Then he led me further down the corridor. Mr. Gray, cabin 914. Exterior with private balcony. I stepped inside. The space was compact but well appointed. The balcony door slid open smoothly. Too smoothly. Required almost no pressure. I walked onto the narrow platform, gripping the railing. Standard height, maybe 42 inches. I leaned slightly, gauging the distance to the water below. 50 feet minimum. Possibly more. Enjoying the view already? Brandon stood in my doorway, watching. Quite a drop, I said, testing the railing's stability. Solid construction. Hope you'll take advantage of the fresh air. Something in his phrasing felt rehearsed. Really breathe in the ocean. After he left, I conducted a thorough inspection. Door lock, standard magnetic key system. Balcony access from inside only, but the sliding mechanism offered minimal security. Neighboring cabins showed no signs of occupancy through their balcony spaces. Isolated positioning. I pulled out my notebook and added another entry. That afternoon, passengers gathered for the mandatory safety drill. During the demonstration, Brandon slipped away, moving toward an upper deck stairwell. Surveillance instincts kicked in. I followed at a distance, keeping other passengers between us. Brandon emerged onto deck 11, pacing near the railing. His phone was out again, conversation intense. I moved closer, using a bulkhead for cover. I said everything's set for Monday night. Brandon's voice carried frustration. No, she's committed. Stop questioning me. He turned suddenly. Our eyes met. Whatever he read in my expression made his jaw tighten. Captain concerns? I asked, gesturing toward his phone. Insurance company. Always some crisis. He brushed past me, heading back down. I remained on deck 11, watching Miami's skyline recede as the ship began its departure. Monday night. 2 days away. The timeline was forming like coordinates on a nautical chart. The formal dining room that evening sparkled with chandeliers and white tablecloths. Brandon ordered a $30 cocktail, barely touched it. Lula picked at her salmon, pushing rice around her plate. Dessert arrived. Chocolate mousse in crystal dishes. Brandon set down his untouched drink and leaned forward. That notary appointment you mentioned. What's the current status of your will? Lula's fork clattered against porcelain. Brandon, what kind of question is that? He ignored her, focus locked on me. Who's listed as primary beneficiary? That's confidential, I said carefully. We're family. His smile held no warmth. Surely Lula inherits. She's your only child. Estate planning is complicated. Multiple factors involved. At your age, these things should be finalized. Clearly defined. He wouldn't release the topic. Lula deserves to know what her future holds. Brandon, please. Lula's voice cracked. Can we just enjoy dinner? I studied my son-in-law. Insurance agent. Failed business ventures. Mounting debts I'd learned about through careful conversations with Lula. Now suddenly interested in my will's specific details. I'll review everything with my notary when we return, I said, standing. Excuse me. The seafood isn't sitting well. Back in my cabin, I pulled out the notebook. New entries, Brandon's phone calls, his timing references, the will interrogation, cabin positioning. Patterns emerging. I tried sleeping, but gave up around 11. The ocean called. Old maritime instincts never fully died. I stepped onto the deck, breathing salt air. Then I saw them. Brandon and Lula stood at my balcony railing. 30 feet away. Brandon gestured downward at the black water, arm extended like he was demonstrating something. Lula hugged herself, nodding at whatever he was explaining. My footsteps made no sound on the rubberized deck. 20 feet. 15. Brandon turned. Froze. Lula spun, hand flying to her chest. Couldn't sleep, I said calmly. Dad, you startled us. She moved away from the railing like it had burned her. Brandon recovered faster. Just getting air. Enjoying the night view. I walked to where they'd been standing. Looked down. Moonlight revealed dark water. Endless and deep. No lights below. No witnesses up here. Quite a perspective from this height. We should return to our cabin. Lula said quickly. It's late. I think I'll stay a while, I said, gripping the railing where Brandon's hand had been moments before. Inside my cabin, I moved deliberately. The desk chair went against the balcony door, wedged under the handle. Phone alarm set for 6 a.m. Notebook open on the nightstand. I sat on the bed, pen in hand, writing everything down. The timeline. The evidence. The growing certainty that my daughter and her husband had brought me here for a specific, terrible reason. Monday night. 2 days. I underlined it twice. Sleep never came. By 6, I was dressed and walking the promenade deck with coffee warming my hands. The deck was nearly empty. Early risers doing laps. A young couple photographing dolphins. I positioned myself with my back to the ship's superstructure. Clear sight lines in every direction. Inspector Gray? I turned. The man in captain's whites studied me with intensity one recognized from my own inspection work. Captain Dalton. I extended my hand. Nathan, isn't it? His grip was firm, but his eyes swept the deck continuously. 15 years ago, you recommended me for that safety commendation after inspecting Atlantic Venture. Your protocols earned it. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Wilbert, listen carefully. You need to leave this ship any way possible. Your son-in-law is planning. Footsteps approached. Rapid. Deliberate. Brandon rounded the corner in jogging clothes, eyes locking onto us with immediate suspicion. Nathan straightened his uniform. Enjoy your breakfast, Mr. Gray. The formality was forced. His departure too abrupt to appear natural. Morning exercise, Wilbert? Brandon stopped beside me, breathing elevated but watching Nathan's retreating back. Friendly with the captain? We met professionally years ago. What was he saying to you? That the buffet opens at 7:30. I kept my voice level. Would you like to join me? His jaw tightened. He didn't believe me, but couldn't push without revealing his own suspicions. Lula's still sleeping. I'll see you at lunch. He jogged away, looking back twice. I spent the afternoon near the pool, pretending to read. My mind catalogued movements, logged faces, tracked patterns. Brandon appeared around 3 with Lula, settling at a nearby table. An elderly gentleman in a Panama hat occupied the chair closest to them. Brandon ordered drinks, then his voice rose slightly. Calculated projection. Terrible story I heard about last year's cruise season. Passenger went overboard at night. The elderly man looked up. How dreadful. Was he drinking? They think so. Leaned over the railing to look at stars. One wrong move and you're in the water. At night, in the dark, the ship moves fast, Brandon continued. You're left behind in minutes. They search, obviously, but... He trailed off with meaningful silence. My fingers tightened on the book's spine. This was rehearsal. Brandon was establishing the narrative for witnesses, planting the seed of how an old man might accidentally fall overboard. Lula sat rigid beside him, contributing nothing. Her hands clutched her phone like a lifeline. Reminds you to be careful, the elderly man said, returning to his paper. Absolutely. Brandon caught my eye across the deck, held it for 3 seconds, then looked away. I returned to my cabin before dinner. The chair remained wedged against the balcony door. I sat on the bed, opened my notebook, added today's observations. Nathan's warning, interrupted. Brandon's poolside performance. The timeline tightening. At 11:17, soft knocking. Through the peephole, Nathan. Alone. Face pale. I opened the door. He slipped inside, checking the hallway before closing it. I'm risking my command being here, he said. But I can't let this happen. Sit down. Start from the beginning. Nathan remained standing, pacing. Saturday night, early Sunday morning actually, around 2 a.m. I was on the bridge checking navigation equipment. Standard overnight watch. He ran both hands through his hair. I heard voices below on the deck directly beneath the bridge. Unusual for that hour. Go on. I recognized them. Your daughter and her husband. They didn't know I was there. I moved to where I could hear without being seen. My hands remained steady on my knees. My voice did not. What did they say? Your son-in-law was discussing timing. He said tomorrow night, tonight, Sunday, wouldn't work. Too many variables. Monday would be better. Nathan met my eyes. The formal dinner, he said. We make sure he drinks plenty at dinner. Wine. After dinner drinks. Then we suggest going on deck for fresh air. Stars are beautiful tonight. Perfect photo opportunity. The cabin felt smaller, colder. Then he said. Nathan swallowed hard. He said, I push him when she distracts him. Quick. Clean. We scream, raise alarm, but it's too late. Ocean's too big at night. And my daughter? I had to ask. She asked, what if someone sees? He laughed. Actually laughed. Told her nobody would be on deck during dinner. And even if someone noticed, you'd be the grieving family. He was drunk, celebrating his birthday, got careless. Tragic accident. Nathan's voice cracked. She asked how long until the insurance pays out. That's when I knew she wasn't just going along with it. She's actively participating. The evidence I'd been collecting crystallized into undeniable pattern. The sudden cruise gift. The cabin with balcony access. Brandon's questions about my will. Tonight's poolside story establishing the accidental narrative. All of it deliberate. All of it planned. Why tell me? I asked. You could lose everything. 15 years ago, you could have failed me on that inspection. One bad report would have ended my career before it started. Nathan's voice steadied. But you were fair. You saw I was trying to do things right. You gave me that chance. He gripped the desk edge. I can't let a man die when I have the power to stop it. If I do nothing and you die tomorrow night, I'm complicit. What are you suggesting? Get you off this ship before tomorrow night. Nathan pulled out his phone. I have contacts. Maritime networks run deep. I can arrange a passenger transfer. Medical emergency. It's been done before. He scrolled through contacts. Another vessel. A transfer at sea. Risky, but not impossible. You'd do that. I'd do more than that to prevent a murder on my ship. Will you trust me? I thought of Lula as a child. Gap-toothed smile, scraped knees, absolute faith that her father could fix anything. I thought of Brandon's cold calculation. I thought of tomorrow night. Dark water. A scream that would come too late. Yes, I said. I'll trust you. Give me 30 minutes. Nathan moved toward the door. Stay in your cabin. Don't open it for anyone but me. His hand rested on the handle. He turned back. I'll find a way, Wilbert. I promise. The door closed behind him. I was alone again, staring at the chair barricading the balcony door. I checked my watch. 11:48. Tomorrow night was the planned murder. I had less than 24 hours. I opened my notebook to a fresh page and wrote, Monday night. Formal dinner. Approximately 24 hours. Then I sat on the bed and waited. 28 minutes. I counted them in silence, unable to sit still, unable to think beyond the ticking seconds. Soft knocking pulled me from pacing. I found a way. Nathan entered quickly, checking the corridor one final time. There's a cargo vessel 15 nautical miles north. Nordic Dawn, heading to Nassau for port call tomorrow afternoon. He pulled a notepad from his uniform pocket. Here's how this works. Around 3 this morning, we move you to the medical bay. Cover story is severe food poisoning. Suspected bacterial contamination from yesterday's raw oyster bar. Won't Brandon and Lula demand to see me? Standard quarantine protocol. Food poisoning is contagious until we rule out certain bacteria. They can't visit sick passengers during isolation period. Nathan's confidence was reassuring. By the time we dock in Nassau tomorrow afternoon and they realize you're not in medical bay, you'll already be there waiting for them. What about your career? If this goes wrong and you die, I'm complicit in murder. I heard the plan and did nothing. That's negligence. Possibly accessory after the fact. His jaw tightened. I'd rather risk my command than live with that. You're putting yourself in danger for me. You gave me my career. I'm trying to save your life. We're even. Nathan checked his watch. We have 2 hours before we execute. Pack minimally. Personal documents, wallet, phone. Nothing that suggests permanent departure. We need Brandon and Lula to believe you're returning after medical treatment. I moved automatically, pulling items from my bag. Passport, wallet, phone charger, the notebook with all my observations. Then I stopped at the desk, pulled out hotel stationery I'd noticed earlier. What should I tell them? I wrote the first version, then crossed it out. Too cold. The second attempt had too much detail. Suspicious. The third achieved necessary false normalcy. Woke up feeling terrible around 2 a.m. Must have been the seafood at dinner. Ship's doctor recommended transferring me to another vessel with better medical facilities. Don't worry about me. I'll meet you when we dock in Nassau tomorrow. Rest and enjoy the cruise. Love, Dad. The word love felt like betrayal, but maintaining cover required authenticity. I'll make sure she gets this after you're gone. Nathan pocketed it carefully. The doctor will come at 3. Play along. You're ill, but not critical. Weak, nauseous, but stable enough for transfer. I've spent 30 years reading body language. Projecting it isn't difficult. At 2:57, the password came through the door. Inspector Gray, it's time for your breakfast. The ship's doctor entered first. Middle-aged woman with efficient movements and kind eyes. Behind her, a younger medical assistant wheeled a transport chair. Mr. Gray, I'm Dr. Chen. The captain explained your symptoms. She took my pulse, professional but not invasive. We're transferring you to Nordic Dawn. They have more advanced diagnostic equipment. Thank you. I let my voice weaken, shoulders slump. Into the chair, please. I settled into the wheelchair, accepting the blanket draped over my lap. Dr. Chen checked my forehead temperature. I'd splashed cold water on my face minutes before, creating clammy skin. Fevers moderate, consistent with foodborne illness. She made notes on a tablet. They wheeled me through corridors I'd never seen. Service passages. Crew-only areas marked with security keypads. The ship felt different here. Utilitarian and functional rather than luxurious. We passed night shift workers who nodded respectfully at the doctor and looked away from me out of courtesy for my illness. The medical bay smelled of antiseptic and clean linens. They transferred me to an examination bed, took blood pressure readings for appearance, documented everything with professional thoroughness. Nathan arrived at 4:10. Nordic Dawn is in position. Sea state is favorable for transfer. The journey to the lower deck tender platform felt surreal. Moving through the ship's belly while passengers slept above, unaware. The medical assistant helped me back into the wheelchair. We took a service elevator down, then emerged onto an open platform where sea breeze hit me with salt spray and diesel fumes. The tender boat waited. Small crew in orange safety vests. In the distance, Nordic Dawn's lights created a constellation against dark water. Carefully now. They helped me from wheelchair to tender, maintaining the pretense of illness even here where only crew could see. Dr. Chen handed paperwork to the tender operator. Medical transfer documents. Making everything official. Nathan gripped my shoulder briefly. Nordic Dawn's captain will take good care of you. Stay in Nassau until this ship docks tomorrow. Then decide your next move. I will. Thank you, Nathan. Send word when you're safe. He stepped back. The tender's engine growled to life. We pulled away from Caribbean Pearl. All that luxury and elegance now housing my daughter who planned my murder. The tender crossed the gap between vessels efficiently, riding swells with practiced ease. Nordic Dawn grew larger. Industrial and weather-beaten. Nothing like the cruise ship's polish. Their crew waited at the transfer platform, helping me aboard with rough kindness. The tender departed immediately, returning to Caribbean Pearl before dawn could expose the operation. I stood on Nordic Dawn's deck, no longer pretending weakness. The cargo ship's captain approached. Stocky man with gray beard and assessing eyes. Thomas Whitfield. Nathan explained enough. He didn't offer his hand. Medical emergency, you said. But you don't move like a sick man now that you're aboard my ship. The illness was strategic, I admitted. Maritime Network shares stories. Nathan Dalton doesn't lie. So whatever reason you had for that emergency transfer, I trust it was necessary. He gestured toward the bridge. We dock in Nassau at 1400 hours. You're welcome to stay in one of our spare cabins until then. Coffee's terrible, but it's hot. I appreciate the discretion. I appreciate honest men. Nathan is one. I'm assuming you are too. I didn't rest. I stood at Nordic Dawn's railing, watching Caribbean Pearl's lights recede into darkness, becoming indistinguishable from stars reflected on water. Dawn lightened the eastern horizon gradually. Deep purple, then navy, then pale blue touched with gold. The industrial engine vibration traveled through my feet. Familiar from decades of Coast Guard inspections. I pulled out my notebook, opened to a fresh page. My hand moved with deliberate precision. Evidence needed. Insurance policy documentation. Financial motive records. Witness testimony. Nathan Dalton. Physical evidence. Cabin positioning. Plan timeline. Below that, I wrote one word and underlined it twice. Nassau. Nordic Dawn's horn sounded. Deep, resonant, purposeful. I'd be in Nassau before Caribbean Pearl docked that afternoon. I'd be waiting when they arrived, expecting to find me either dead or missing. They'd find neither. They'd find something far worse for them. I closed the notebook, that word Nassau staring back at me. Captain Whitfield looked up when I entered the bridge. Something you need, Mr. Gray? Satellite phone. I'll pay for the call. He gestured toward the communications panel. Help yourself. No charge. The number came from memory. Harriet Sullivan, maritime attorney I'd worked with 15 years ago on Coast Guard injury cases. 3 rings. Harriet Sullivan speaking. Harriet. Wilbert Gray. Coast Guard inspection cases, 2010. Brief silence. Wilbert. It's been years. What's happened? My daughter and son-in-law attempted to murder me last night. I escaped with help from a ship's captain. I need legal advice immediately. Her voice shifted. Professional, but focused. Start from the beginning. Facts only. I gave her the compressed version. The suspicious cruise gift. Cabin placement. Brandon's questions about my will. Nathan overhearing the murder discussion. My emergency evacuation. She listened without interruption. Did anyone else witness their planning? She asked. Captain Nathan Dalton. He overheard everything. He's willing to provide testimony. Excellent. That's your cornerstone witness. What other evidence do you have? Personal observations. Documented timeline. Suspicious behaviors. Not enough for prosecution yet. Then gather more. Document everything. If possible, record them incriminating themselves further. She paused. Where are you now? Aboard Nordic Dawn approaching Nassau. The cruise ship docks there this afternoon. Perfect. Let them see you alive. Their reaction will be evidence. Her tone sharpened. But Wilbert, don't confront them alone. Stay visible. Stay protected. Understood. Find yourself a good investigator in Nassau. You'll need surveillance capability. I'll text you contact information. Keys clicked in the background. Call me after you've met with him. We'll build this case properly. Nassau materialized through morning haze. Pastel buildings climbing hillsides. Cruise terminals sprawling along the waterfront. Nordic Dawn docked at the cargo facility around 8. Industrial and efficient. I disembarked with my small bag, feeling oddly exposed on solid ground. The cafe James Caldwell suggested sat between cargo operations and tourist areas. Neutral territory. He was already there when I arrived. Coffee untouched. Eyes tracking my approach with professional assessment. Mr. Gray. He didn't stand. Harriet speaks highly of you. I sat across from him. She said you're trustworthy. Depends on the job. He leaned back. She mentioned family trouble. Murder plot. Want to explain? I did, watching his expression remain neutral throughout. When I finished, he asked 3 sharp questions about timing, cabin locations, and Nathan's exact testimony. Then he nodded. You want surveillance. Specifically recording their reaction when they discover you're not dead and not sick and waiting for them in Nassau. Exactly. They might try again. They'll try regardless. Caldwell pulled out his phone. I have someone inside Caribbean Pearl's crew. Steward on the upper decks. Good man. Needs money for his daughter's medical bills. He scrolled through contacts. For 2,000 cash, he'll install a camera in your cabin before your family discovers you're gone. I counted out bills from my emergency funds. Wireless feed. Cloud encrypted. You'll have access within the hour. He pocketed the money efficiently. Stay here. I'll coordinate installation. The next 90 minutes stretched. I drank coffee that tasted like rust. Watched cruise ships maneuver in the harbor. My phone buzzed. Caldwell's text with login credentials. I opened the surveillance app. Saw my former cabin in real time. Empty bed. Barricaded balcony door still visible. Afternoon sunlight through the porthole. Around 1 o'clock. Movement. The door opened. Brandon entered first, scanning the space like he expected ambush. Lula followed, holding a piece of paper. My note. The audio quality was surprisingly clear. Where is he? Brandon moved through the small space, checking the bathroom, the closet. Lula unfolded my note, read aloud. Woke up feeling terrible around 2 a.m. Transferred to another vessel with better medical facilities. Meet you in Nassau. Her voice wavered. He's really sick. We should find him. That cunning old fox. Brandon snatched the note, read it himself. How did he? He stopped mid-sentence, wheels turning behind his eyes. The plan failed, Lula said. What do we do now? Brandon paced, hands raking through his hair. I'd never seen him this agitated. We adapt. Nassau works better anyway. We can stage something there. Robbery gone wrong. Tourists get killed. It happens. Brandon, no. Maybe we should just. Just what? He spun on her. Give up the money, the house, everything we planned? After 3 months of preparation. She flinched. I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. He crouched in front of her, gripping her shoulders. Because if we don't, we lose everything. I watched them, cataloging every word, every gesture. Caldwell appeared beside me. Getting all this. Every frame. We moved to the cruise terminal as Caribbean Pearl's massive hull appeared in the harbor entrance. The ship maneuvered slowly, docking procedures unfolding with practiced efficiency. Passengers crowded the rails, waving to people on shore. I positioned myself where they'd see me immediately upon disembarking. Caldwell found position 20 feet away, tourist camera ready but trained on nothing in particular. The gangway extended. Passengers began streaming down. Then I saw them. Lula's bright sundress unmistakable in the crowd. Brandon beside her in casual shirt and dark sunglasses. They moved slowly, scanning the dock. They hadn't seen me yet. I stepped forward, raised my hand in greeting. Lula. Brandon. Over here. Lula turned. Her face drained of every shade of color. The frozen second stretched. Lula's mouth opened. No sound emerged. Her hand shot out, gripping Brandon's forearm with visible force. Other passengers flowed around them, oblivious, chattering about parasailing and conch fritters. Brandon followed her stare. His body went rigid. Sunglasses masking his eyes, but jaw clenching visibly. I maintained my position. Pleasant expression fixed. One hand still raised. 20 feet away, Caldwell's camera phone angled to capture everything. The moment broke. Lula moved first. Legs carrying her forward through automatic response to seeing her father. Her embrace when she reached me felt like hugging a mannequin. All stiff angles and trembling resistance. Dad. Her voice cracked. We thought, the note said you were sick. Recovered beautifully. I held her at arm's length, studying her face. The doctor on Nordic Dawn was excellent. Former emergency room physician. Treated me like his own father. Brandon approached more slowly. Hand extended rather than embracing. You recovered remarkably fast, he said. I shook his hand firmly. Held his gaze through the sunglasses. Modern medicine works wonders. Aren't you glad to see me? Of course. The words came out mechanical. We were concerned. No need for concern now. I'm perfectly healthy. I released his hand. Shall we get lunch? I've been exploring while waiting for you. Found an excellent seafood place. They had no choice. Too many witnesses. Too public. Too bright with Caribbean sunshine and tourist cameras. Over the next week, I orchestrated every moment. I arranged 3 tickets for Caribbean Pearl's return voyage. I kept them close. Photographed them constantly. Documented their growing desperation. All while the evidence mounted. Insurance fraud documents. Nathan's sworn testimony. Surveillance footage. Wiretap recordings of Brandon hiring someone to finish what the crews couldn't. When the police arrested them at dawn in Miami, Lula screamed for me. "Daddy, please." It was Brandon. He forced me. But I'd heard her voice on those recordings. Heard her ask about insurance payout timing. Heard her agree to the plan. Brandon just stared at me with pure hatred. "You did this. You set us up." I watched them loaded into separate patrol cars and felt nothing. Money doesn't change people. It just reveals who they've always been. My daughter had always been capable of this. I just hadn't wanted to see it.